Have you ever watched a woman in designer sunglasses accuse a wheelbarrow of lowering neighborhood morale? Because I have. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was standing in my front yard, covered in mulch dust, holding a shovel, and trying to finish a flower bed before the sky decided to dump rain on me. My wheelbarrow was parked near the driveway with 3 bags of topsoil in it, 1 rake leaning against the handles, and a single marigold plant sitting on top like it had been chosen for sacrifice. A normal person would have seen yard work. Karen Bellamy saw civilization collapsing. Karen was the HOA vice president of Magnolia Ridge, which meant she had all the arrogance of a president with none of the responsibility. She wore crisp white capri pants, oversized sunglasses, and floral scarves that looked expensive enough to have their own security team. She drove a champagne-colored golf cart with a little basket in the back, full of violation notices, gardening gloves, and what I strongly suspected was emergency rage fuel. She stopped at my curb like my wheelbarrow had personally insulted her ancestors. My name is Ryan Keller, and before Karen declared war on my wheelbarrow, I was not trying to make a statement. I was trying to plant flowers. My mother had moved in with me 6 months earlier after her knee surgery, and she loved sitting on the porch in the evenings. She had always been a garden person. Roses, petunias, zinnias, hydrangeas. She could look at a dead-looking twig and tell you it had potential. I, on the other hand, once killed a cactus by forgetting it existed for 9 months. But I was trying. I wanted the front yard to feel cheerful for her. She had spent months stuck inside, dealing with pain, physical therapy, and the slow frustration of needing help to do things she used to do without thinking. So I bought plants, mulch, soil, and the ugliest old wheelbarrow you have ever seen. It was dented, faded green, and had 1 squeaky wheel that sounded like a haunted shopping cart. But it worked. And that was all I needed. Karen disagreed. She stepped out of her golf cart, holding her tablet. "Ryan," she said, in the tone people use when announcing a suspicious mole, "we need to discuss the object." I looked around. "The object?" She pointed with 1 manicured finger. "That." "My wheelbarrow?" "That is not a wheelbarrow. That is an exposed utility transport vessel." I stared at her. "Karen, it has 1 wheel and emotional damage. It's a wheelbarrow." She tapped her tablet. Section 8. Paragraph L of the Magnolia Ridge Exterior Beauty Code prohibits storage carts, utility wagons, construction equipment, garden debris vessels, tool carriers, and miscellaneous work apparatus from remaining visible in front-facing areas. I'm using it right now. It has been visible for over 2 hours. Yes, because gardening takes longer than a sneeze. Her smile tightened. The community standard expects active work materials to be removed immediately when not in direct physical use. I looked at the shovel in my hand. I am in direct physical use. You are currently standing still. That sentence almost broke me. From the porch, my mother called, "Tell her the flowers are for me." Karen's eyes flicked toward my mother, then back to me. "The flowers are not the issue. The wheelbarrow is unattractive." My mother's face fell a little. She had been excited about the flower bed. She had picked the colors herself. I felt my grip tighten around the shovel handle. Karen continued, "You have 24 hours to remove the item from public view. A $175 fine has been issued. Continued visibility will result in daily penalties and possible landscape compliance review. For a wheelbarrow. For an unapproved garden work apparatus." I took the notice she handed me and looked at the photo attached to it. She had zoomed in on the wheelbarrow so aggressively it looked like surveillance footage of a fugitive. "Karen," I said, "I'm improving the yard." "You may improve the yard without displaying trashy equipment." There it was. Trashy. My mother heard it. I saw her expression change from embarrassed to hurt, and that did something to me. I could handle Karen insulting me. I could handle her insulting my tools, but she had taken the one thing I was doing to make my mother smile and turned it into another reason for her to feel like a burden. So I folded the notice and slipped it into my back pocket. Karen smiled, thinking she had scared me. But if you're watching Sovereign Verdict, subscribe now, because Karen Bellamy had just made a terrible mistake. She told me my wheelbarrow was too ugly to be seen. So I decided nobody in Magnolia Ridge would be able to look away from it. That night, while my mother watched a baking show in the living room and pretended not to be upset, I sat at the kitchen table with Karen's violation notice, my laptop, and a bowl of microwave popcorn I was eating with the grim focus of a man preparing for battle. The notice said my wheelbarrow was a visible garden debris vessel. Fine. If Karen wanted to classify objects based on presentation, I was going to present that wheelbarrow so aggressively even the bylaws would need sunglasses. I downloaded the Magnolia Ridge HOA documents and started reading. 264 pages of decorative tyranny. There were rules about hose reels, rules about mulch depth, rules about bird feeder color, and a terrifying footnote explaining that artificial butterflies could be displayed only if they were not arranged in a manner suggesting migration. I don't know who had traumatized this neighborhood with butterfly patterns, but apparently the board had never recovered. Karen had quoted the work apparatus rule correctly. Garden carts, utility wagons, and tool carriers could not remain visible in front-facing areas when not actively used. But I kept going. Because every HOA rulebook has one magical sentence written by somebody who was trying to sound classy and accidentally created a loophole big enough to drive a parade through. At 12:19 a.m., I found it. Section 13, paragraph H. Seasonal floral displays, ornamental garden installations, decorative wheeled planters, artistic landscape features, and temporary community celebration displays may be placed in front-facing areas when maintained, non-commercial, and visually integrated with approved landscaping. I read the line 3 times. Decorative wheeled planters, temporary community celebration displays, artistic landscape features. I looked out the kitchen window at the old green wheelbarrow sitting in the driveway. It was dented, dirty, and squeaky. But legally, it had potential. The next morning, I called my friend Luis. Luis owned a small event decoration business and had once turned a school gym into a fake underwater ballroom for a middle school dance with a budget of $12 and pure emotional instability. If anyone could make a wheelbarrow look like it belonged in a parade, it was Luis. He answered on the second ring. Please tell me this is not another HOA thing. It is absolutely another HOA thing, he sighed. How much glitter are we allowed? Enough to hurt feelings, not enough to violate environmental regulations. By noon, Luis was in my driveway with silk flowers, weatherproof ribbons, floral foam, gold trim, 2 tiny battery-free spinning pinwheels, and a roll of velvet fabric he called dignified but petty. My mother came onto the porch with her walker and watched us work. "What are you boys doing?" she asked. Luis bowed dramatically. "Ma'am, we are upgrading your son's trashy equipment into civic beauty." She looked at me. I shrugged. Karen said it was ugly. My mother smiled for the first time since the violation notice. "Then make it ridiculous." So we did. We cleaned the wheelbarrow until the old green metal actually reflected sunlight. Luis lined the inside with waterproof planter trays and filled them with cascading petunias, bright marigolds, purple verbena, and white alyssum that spilled over the edges like a floral waterfall. We wrapped the handles in red velvet ribbon, painted the wheel gold, and attached a small decorative arch over the basin covered in flowers. Then Luis added the sign: Magnolia Ridge, Spring Bloom Parade, float dedicated to Eleanor Keller's porch garden. My mother stared at her name on the sign. For a second, she said nothing. Then she wiped her eyes and muttered, "That woman is going to hate this." "Deeply," I said. By evening, the wheelbarrow was no longer parked near the flower bed as equipment. It was positioned at the center of the new garden border as a decorative wheeled planter and temporary celebration display. It was maintained. It was non-commercial. It was overflowing with approved flowers. And it was so visually integrated with the landscaping that people slowed their cars just to look. At 7:03 the next morning, Karen arrived. Her golf cart rolled to a stop at the curb. She stepped out wearing a yellow scarf, white capris, and the confident expression of someone expecting surrender. Then she saw the wheelbarrow. Her sunglasses lowered. Her mouth opened slightly. The squeaky old tool carrier had become a bright, flower-covered parade float sitting proudly in my front yard like it had won Best in Show at a festival no one remembered organizing. I walked out with my coffee. "Morning, Karen." She pointed at the display. "What is that?" "A decorative wheeled planter." "That is your wheelbarrow." "That was my wheelbarrow. Now it is a seasonal floral installation. It has a parade sign, temporary community celebration display." "There is no parade." Not with that attitude. From the porch, my mother called, "I think it's beautiful." Karen's face tightened. "Mrs. Keller, no one is questioning your taste." My mother smiled sweetly. "You did yesterday." Luis, who had stopped by to check the flowers, whispered, "Fatality." Karen snapped photos from every angle. "This is still a violation." I held up a printed copy of Section 13, Paragraph H. Her eyes skimmed the highlighted line. For the first time, Karen looked unsure. Then she recovered, because people like Karen treat uncertainty as a medical emergency. "Emergency hearing," she said. "Tonight, 7 o'clock. I nodded. "Should I bring the parade float?" Her left eye twitched. "No." Behind her, the gold-painted wheel turned slowly in the breeze and squeaked once. It sounded exactly like applause. The Magnolia Ridge clubhouse smelled like lemon polish, expensive coffee, and suppressed neighborhood drama. By 6:50 that evening, the meeting room was already packed. Apparently, news of a wheelbarrow becoming a parade float traveled faster than official HOA notices. Neighbors filled the folding chairs, stood along the back wall, and whispered while pretending they were only there because they cared deeply about covenant interpretation. My mother insisted on coming. I tried to talk her out of it, but Eleanor Keller was the kind of woman who once told a hospital billing department, "I have survived childbirth, marriage, and cable installation. You do not frighten me." So she put on her nicest blue cardigan, grabbed her walker, and told me if Karen was going to insult her garden, she wanted a front row seat. Luis came too, carrying a portfolio of design sketches like he was about to defend a museum exhibit. I walked in with a binder under one arm and a photo of the flower float tucked inside. Karen Bellamy sat at the center of the board table wearing a cream blazer and the tight smile of someone who had already decided the verdict, but still wanted applause for the process. Beside her sat 3 board members. Douglas, the treasurer, looked permanently worried. Marlene, who ran the gardening committee, had a floral brooch and sharp eyes. And Frank, a retired parade marshal from the county fair, was already staring at the photo on Karen's tablet with dangerous interest. Karen slammed the gavel. "This emergency session concerns Lot 14, she announced, where homeowner Ryan Keller has responded to a simple utility equipment violation by converting a work wheelbarrow into an unauthorized front yard spectacle." Frank leaned forward. Did you say spectacle? Karen ignored him. Mr. Keller, do you deny that the same wheelbarrow remains visible from the street? No. Her smile widened. I opened my binder. I deny that it remains a work wheelbarrow under the rule you cited. It has been converted into a decorative wheeled planter and temporary community celebration display. Marlene adjusted her glasses. Decorative wheeled planter? I handed copies of the highlighted covenant page to the board. Section 13, paragraph H, allows seasonal floral displays, ornamental garden installations, decorative wheeled planters, artistic landscape features, and temporary community celebration displays in front-facing areas when maintained, non-commercial, and visually integrated with approved landscaping. Frank read the page and immediately looked delighted. Temporary community celebration displays. Karen shot him a warning look. Frank? What? He said. It's festive. Karen's jaw tightened. The intent of that section is tasteful seasonal decoration, not turning yard equipment into carnival property. It is not carnival property, I said. It is a flower parade float dedicated to my mother's porch garden. My mother lifted one hand from the front row. And I approve the dedication. Several neighbors chuckled. Karen's smile turned brittle. Mrs. Keller, with respect, your approval does not determine community standards. My mother smiled back. No, but apparently your mood does. The room made that beautiful sound people make when they are trying not to laugh and failing. Karen banged the gavel. Order! I continued before she could recover. The original violation stated that a garden work apparatus could not remain visible. The wheelbarrow no longer functions as a work apparatus. It is lined with planter trays, filled with approved flowers, cleaned, painted, stabilized, and integrated into the garden bed. It is maintained. It is non-commercial. It fits the exact language of the rule. Marlene looked at the photos. The flowers are healthy. Karen snapped. That is not the issue. It is absolutely part of the issue, Marlene said. If we're calling it a floral display, the flowers matter. Frank nodded. And parade float presentation has standards. Karen looked betrayed. Why do you know that? I was county parade marshal for 16 years, he said proudly. This has proper visual balance. Luis leaned toward me and whispered, I love Frank. Karen pointed at my display photos. It still has handles. It still has a wheel. It still resembles equipment. A decorative wheeled planter requires wheels, I replied. That seems structurally unavoidable. Douglas lowered his copy of the rule. He has a point. Karen's face reddened. This is retaliatory decoration. Yes, I said. The room went quiet. I shrugged. It is retaliatory compliance. You called something trashy while my mother was watching, so I complied with the rule in the most beautiful way available. For the first time, Karen looked slightly uncomfortable. Then Luis stepped forward and opened his portfolio. I designed the installation, he said. The wheelbarrow is no longer being used to transport soil, debris, tools, or materials. It has internal planter trays, drainage, floral support foam, and stabilizing blocks. It is currently functioning as a stationary ornamental garden installation. Marlene looked impressed. You added drainage? Of course, Luis said, mildly offended. We are petty, not irresponsible. That got a laugh. Karen slapped a new photo on the table. Then explain this sign. Magnolia Ridge Spring Bloom Parade Float. There is no approved parade. Frank's head snapped up. Oh, he said. About that. Karen froze. The clubhouse door opened behind us. A woman in a green county parks jacket stepped inside, holding a clipboard and smiling like she had arrived at exactly the right moment. Frank stood proudly. "I may have invited someone," he said. Karen stared at him. "You what?" I looked at the county logo on the woman's jacket, then back at Karen, and for the first time all night I had no idea what was about to happen. But judging from Karen's face, it was going to be wonderful. The woman from County Parks stepped into the clubhouse with the calm smile of someone who had clearly walked into stranger meetings before. She was in her 40s, with a green jacket, practical shoes, and a clipboard tucked under one arm. Her name badge said Lisa Ramirez, Community Beautification Coordinator, which was possibly the most dangerous title anyone could have brought into Karen Bellamy's emergency hearing. Karen stood halfway from her chair. "Frank, why is someone from the County Parks Department here?" Frank adjusted his collar with the dignity of a man who had waited years for his parade knowledge to matter again. "Because you kept saying there was no parade." Lisa smiled. "Technically there is." Karen went still. The room leaned forward like one giant, gossip-powered machine. Lisa opened her clipboard. Magnolia Ridge registered for the county's Neighborhood Spring Bloom Walk 6 months ago. It's part of the Residential Beautification Initiative. Participating streets are encouraged to create decorative floral features, themed garden elements, and front-facing displays that celebrate neighborhood horticulture. Marlene's eyes lit up. "I remember that. We voted to participate." Douglas looked through his notes. "Yes, there was a $10 registration fee." Karen's face tightened. "That program was intended for tasteful flower beds." Lisa glanced at the photo of my wheelbarrow float. "This is a tasteful flower display." Karen pointed at it. "It is a wheelbarrow." "Decorative wheeled planter," Frank corrected. Lisa nodded. "Actually, the county program specifically lists wheelbarrow planters as an example of creative spring displays." The room erupted. Karen grabbed the edge of the table like the floor had shifted under her. "That cannot be true." Lisa handed a printed guideline sheet to the board. Frank read over Marlene's shoulder, smiling wider with every line. "Repurposed garden tools, wagons, wheelbarrows, watering cans, and decorative containers may be used as floral installations." Marlene looked at Karen. "Well, that's specific." Karen's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood at the podium, trying very hard not to look too happy. This was the dangerous moment. When an HOA Karen is cornered, she will either surrender or attempt to rewrite reality out loud. Karen chose option 2. "The county program does not override our governing documents," she snapped. "Correct," I said. "But your governing documents already allow decorative wheeled planters, artistic landscape features, and temporary community celebration displays. The county program confirms that the presentation is normal for a spring beautification event." Lisa added, "And Magnolia Ridge is eligible for neighborhood recognition if enough homes participate." Douglas suddenly looked interested. "Recognition?" "There's a small plaque," Lisa said, "and a mention in the county newsletter." That did it. You could feel the board's loyalty shift in real time. Karen had brought them an ugly wheelbarrow problem. I had accidentally brought them county praise, flowers, and a newsletter photo opportunity. Marlene looked at the pictures again. "The display is bright, maintained, and seasonal. The dedication to Mrs. Keller is lovely." My mother gave her a small nod. Frank tapped the rule page. "And as former parade marshal, I'll say it has better balance than half the floats we allowed in the Apple Festival." Karen hissed, "This is not the Apple Festival." "No," Frank said, "but the wheel is painted very nicely." Luis whispered, "Frank is my hero." Marlene raised her hand. I moved to dismiss the fine against Lot 14 and approve the Magnolia Ridge Spring Bloom Parade float as a seasonal floral display, decorative wheeled planter, and temporary community celebration display under Section 13, Paragraph H, subject to maintenance and removal or redesign after the spring program ends. Frank raised his hand immediately. Second, Karen snapped. We are not voting yet. Douglas looked down at the agenda. Actually, we are, Marlene said. All in favor? Marlene raised her hand. Frank raised his. Douglas hesitated for one dramatic second, then raised his too. 3 votes. Karen's hand stayed flat on the table, pale and furious. The motion passes, Marlene said. Fine dismissed. Display approved. The room applauded. Not polite applause either, real applause, the kind that makes an HOA president reconsider whether public meetings were a mistake. My mother squeezed my hand. Karen gathered her tablet, her papers, and whatever remained of her dignity. She looked at me, then at Luis, then at the photo of the flower-covered wheelbarrow. This neighborhood used to have elegance, she said. My mother smiled sweetly. It still does. It just has a squeaky wheel now. That line followed Karen all the way out the door. 3 days later, the official email arrived. My balance was 0. The display was approved through the Spring Bloom Walk. Karen tried to add a note saying, no future parade-related objects without board pre-clearance, but Frank objected because, according to him, parade, enthusiasm cannot be chilled by vague administrative language. I had never respected a retired parade marshal more. The wheelbarrow stayed. Every morning, my mother sat on the porch and watched neighbors slow down to admire it. Kids pointed at the gold wheel. Someone left a tiny paper ribbon on the handle. Marlene stopped by with fertilizer advice. Even Douglas brought his wife to see it and whispered, "It really is balanced." The best part came 2 weeks later when the county newsletter came out. Right there on page 3 was a photo of my mother smiling beside the flower parade float, with the caption, "Magnolia Ridge resident Eleanor Keller celebrates spring with a creative wheelbarrow planter." Karen's golf cart patrols became less frequent after that. But every time she did pass my house, that old gold-painted wheel seemed to catch the sunlight at exactly the right moment, shining like a medal for petty compliance. So remember this from Sovereign Verdict. Subscribe for more stories, read every rule twice, and never let an HOA Karen call your garden tools trash unless she is ready to see them become an award-worthy flower parade float with county approval and a fan club.